Look at this. It looks fantastic. Oh no. What's this? Wait. No, come on. Let's not do this. Come on. Oh, God's sake. Oh, look at all that drama. I want no part of that, thank you very much. I am getting far too old for all this gamer drama at my age. I just... Wait. What's happening? Oh, okay. Well, I guess we are doing this then. So, first-person fantasy RPG Avowed launched on Game Pass this past week, and I had seen references to it being Skyrim-like, which frankly is enough to spark my interest given the sheer number of hours I've spent playing Elder Scrolls games and the numerous editions of Skyrim that Todd Howard has managed to make me buy. I pre-installed the game and figured its arrival came at a good time, right after I'd just finished my first run-through of Citizen Sleeper 2, providing a nice change from the more cerebral and text-based challenges of Jump Over the Ages' latest adventure. Over the past week or so, I have played through at least an hour or two of Avowed most nights and found myself quite enjoying the game, basically doing all of my favourite Skyrim things. Getting into every spurious side quest rather than doing the main quest line, getting stuck in random places after trying to go over or through rather than around, marvelling at weird ragdoll physics in combat. Now, there were some bits I didn't enjoy as much, but overall I was fairly happy with Avowed, a game whose cost was contained within the not inconsiderable but already paid Game Pass membership. So imagine my surprise when I was scrolling through Facebook and kept seeing a whole bunch of references to the dreaded discourse around Avowed. Oh yes, some gamers have been vocally railing against Avowed for a number of interesting and mostly amusing reasons, and I was genuinely puzzled by how difficult it was to actually find any decent discussion of the game that wasn't being skewed by culture war nonsense. I figured I'd put out a quick examination of the criticisms I see most commonly and tag a very quick review on at the end, so that those that don't trust the paid reviews of IGN and the like, but also don't want to rely on clickbaiting culture war gamers for their news, have an alternative they can point to. So let's do it. Let's see those juicy criticisms from the most normal demographic on the internet. So, as part of my work on this video, I wanted to look at the popular criticisms of Avowed in the comment sections of Facebook and Reddit and on sites like IGN and Metacritic. So here are some fairly typical quotes I've pulled that touched on its wokery or diversity as a reason to disparage Avowed. The anti-white racism from the studio ensured its failure. The idea that Avowed is a failure is something I will touch on in a future section, but be prepared to see a lot of anti-white talk in any comment section that is frequented by the intellectually confused. I think they're passing on it because the art director is a verifiable racist lunatic. Now then, there is a whole subplot to all of this due to a leaked internal combo at Obsidian. It included Avowed art director Matt Hansen enjoying right-wing gamers getting mad about the inclusion of a visible preferred pronoun on a screenshot from Avowed ahead of release. Hansen also later celebrated Elon Musk getting mad about that same screenshot, as per this series of Blue Sky posts where they said, "I wanted so badly to make him mad with my game, and I cannot believe it actually happened. Just wait until you see the default, you sad little shit." It's honestly deeply surreal to have the world's richest, shittiest boy whine about something I am making. I am quite frankly giddy. I cannot think of a single person in the world I would rather irritate. The absolutely normal right-wing gamer community then did their thing and went hunting on Twitter and found a 2020 tweet from Matt Hansen that read, "Reminder to black artists out there who are looking for portfolio reviews or job advice, my DMs are open and you will always have my priority. We got too many crusty white dudes in this field. Please let me help you replace me one day. I want to go back to living in the woods." Naturally, this led to a lot of accusations of racism and anti-white discrimination from the worst parts of the internet. Obviously, if you have a brain cell or two, you can quite quickly parse the difference between helping underrepresented minorities access an industry and, well, whatever these confused people think is happening. They just want some more white guy representation in fantasy art, I guess. Then, like the Balrog emerging from the depths beneath Khazad-dûm. Why, yes, I did watch Lord of the Rings recently. We get the emergence of this absolutely unhinged Facebook comment from what I can only imagine is a self-ratified expert on feminine bone structure who also possesses a drag queen kink that they are in denial about. The God-touched character details force any character to have an almost drag queen aesthetic. Unusually burly female bone structure also makes every character look vaguely like some kind of drag or male to female bad word. That kind of aesthetic isn't popular enough to apply it to all characters. The characters looking bad in the game probably does more to dissuade people than anti-white sentiment. It's more accurate to describe the views of certain individuals at Obsidian as pro-marxist because their discrimination on race is based on that worldview. They are just communists and shouldn't be in the industry in the first place. So just as a reminder, since you might be wondering how we got here, we're talking about this, a character that has coral or plants growing out of their face. Here are some famous drag queens for you to compare. Yeah, not sure where you were getting this comparison from, champ, but to reiterate, I really do think you need to examine why you are so preoccupied with drag queens.
This better not awaken anything in me.
We then get a bit of the phrenology. Unusually burly female bone structure is indicative of the weird stuff that gets wheeled out a bunch online, mostly by people that would very much benefit from interacting with some real life women. Finally, as if we needed any more confirmation that these people are fully piped into the terminally online alt-right discourse, we get a little bit about Marxism and communists, because of course we do. Nothing bad happens without a touch of the old cultural Marxism trope being called into play. Reminder again that this is all because of face coral. Some commenters believe that Avowed is part of a crusade against heterosexual white men, a demographic to which I also belong, as indicated by these little gems. Pronouns, ugly characters, man-hating writing, developers literally breaking the law with discriminatory hiring. Man-hating writing is a new one to me, so let's add that to the list of perceived slights from that most secure and not at all snowflake-like section of society. Oh, and this one was fun. I think this was from an IGN comment section. I tried really hard to keep playing, but after 20 hours and being on second map, I got tired of the incohesive storyline and sexist disproportion. Imagine trying to complain about a game being so bad and objectionable, but then dropping in that you only managed to clock 20 hours. They continue. More female vendors acting like straight up men relative male vendors and some other BS. You do understand that sex differences are there due millions of years of evolution. The funny part being that reading comments like this actually makes me doubt the theory of evolution. That is all read as it was written, by the way, and no, I do not have a clue what they are going on about. Right, one last one for this section then. Deep breath for this one. This game has wokeness embedded in it and forces agendas, doesn't belong in media. Watch Asmongold video examining this compared to Oblivion, a 19-year-old game, and Skyrim made a review on Xbox review section and they removed it. There is almost always a materialist element to every social and cultural phenomena. And this last quote actually made me really sad. This poor soul, along with having to suffer wokeness in their video games and what is clearly a dire taste in YouTube videos, clearly can't afford a full stop. Thoughts and prayers go out to you, you confused and breathless soul. Right. That's enough about culture war nonsense. Let's go see what else has people all steamed up about Avowed. I once saw an animated garden gnome shrieking that facts don't care about your feelings, and the enigmatic and murky world of game reviews offers us both a quantitative measurement by which games can be judged, alongside spurious Steam numbers and the like, and a rich vein of conspiracy and collusion. are paid video game reviewers honest, or are they paid by game publishers to help shift stock? Well, according to what I have seen, that entirely depends on whether the review suits your own opinion or not. Take for example, IGN. IGN gave Avowed a 7 out of 10 and said, Avowed is a perfectly competent RPG that showcases Obsidian's writing and world-building chops, but has little to distinguish itself among swords and sorcery adventures. Games Radar gave Avowed 4 stars from 5, and said quite similarly, Avowed fills a first-person void within the fantasy RPG genre, but it also stands as an immersive spin on Pillars of Eternity, without losing any of the stellar storytelling and world-building that Obsidian is known for. Overlooking its forgettable party combat system and some minor quality of life misses, Avowed deserves to be remembered as one of this year's best games. Finally, I went over to Metacritic to get a more consensus-based review score, and the critics gave Avowed an 8 out of 10, and users a little lower at 6.9 out of 10 at time of checking. Metacritic also tells us that there have been 0 negative critic reviews of Avowed, which is a little sus, I suppose. But even if we look at the user reviews, they are reporting as 62% positive, 11% mixed, and 27% negative. So a 6.9 out of 10 feels probably about right, and roughly in keeping with the reviews quoted so far. I'll mention my own thoughts towards the end of the video, but I think the approximate consensus seems to be that Avowed is decent to good, but not a genre-defining game. Let us now see what the very normal discourse is like in the comments under these reviews. Started playing this game yesterday, and I have no idea how this game gets great reviews. Okay, the open world looks amazing and it has a really nice story, but the gameplay is terrible. The movement of the characters feels bad, like not natural, and the battle mechanics are terrible. Even games that are over 10 years old like Skyrim or Witcher 3 are much better combat systems and feel more realistic. Now, I love Skyrim, and Oblivion for that matter, but the combat in those games was never the main selling point, was it? And realism, that old gem, not all games have to be realistic to be good, surely. But wait, I'm not doing my review just yet, let's continue. I'm actually glad this is released so close to KCD 2. People will really be able to see the difference in quality between the two with their own eyes. Not these paid activist reviews. KCD 2 being the sequel to Kingdom Come Deliverance. The first Kingdom Come Deliverance was a game that had a discourse all its own. I seem to recall the main dev had accusations at the time around their personal politics surrounding the lack of non-white or female character options. It was defended at the time as being historically accurate, which is both massively debatable and also a bit of a code phrase used by the same people often decrying the presence of wokery. So its frequent recurrence in comments surrounding Avowed probably has a lot more to do with culture war than what is an admittedly well-made game series. Any comparisons between the sequel and Avowed do tend to ignore that it is, at its core, a wildly different game. Yes, they are both first-person hack and slashers, but on almost every other philosophical level they are very different beasts, with one a colourful fantasy adventure and the other more of a medieval life simulator with an emphasis on, realism. Oh, but I did enjoy the paid activist reviews part. That was a nice touch. Onwards to the next one. I love it when games that deserve to fail actually fail. Maybe they could have spent the time wasted coding in pronouns to making sure the game actually worked and wasn't a mediocre buggy disaster. The maybe you should have instead of subgenre is rich with unintentional hilarity, self-reporting, and just makes me think of older folks yelling at the telly. Has Avowed failed? I'm sure I don't know, but it all seems a bit premature, doesn't it? But then I don't gather all my information about the world from screaming red-faced YouTubers, so what do I know? Now, as a sort of a mini tangent, I did want to touch on another of my favourite subgenres of culture war game criticism, that being the I haven't played it, but join me as we experience opinions from people who don't think you should play it, but haven't tried it themselves. The roller coaster begins with a humble offering. succinct in its criticism and its lack of self-awareness. I haven't played it yet, but from watching a few YouTube videos, it looks awful if you ask me. Rumour has it that this person still wanders social media of an evening, searching for someone, anyone mind you, to ask them for their uninformed opinion that they are so desperate to share. And they are not alone in wanting to act as an empty can amplifier for other people's opinions. From what I have seen and heard, this game is an incredibly mid-standard RPG. Not worth $70. Can't say for myself as I haven't personally played it, but the reception seems lukewarm to me. Has anyone picked it up? What are your thoughts? Amazing. This reads like an internal conversation akin to those between Schmeagol and Gollum, though even Schmeagol made some good points occasionally. Check the boldness of this next comment's first line in response to Game Radar's 4-star review. It's just not 4 out of 5 though! A strong opening, a forceful opinion. Let's hear why though. From the reviews I have seen, the voice acting is awful, writing is cringy, and the AI and NPCs are stupid and robotic, and the cities are dead and lifeless aside from the merchants. The combat looks very boring and repetitive. Attention to detail has completely gone. No arguments here. You can't pay less attention than 0 after all, which is exactly how much experience of the game this commenter has had. They continue. The reviews I have seen from independent reviewers rather than game journalists have been very telling. Much like Starfield, it falls short of games that came before it. And the one-word summation that full stops this comment also captures my feelings about this review rather nicely. Disappointing. Disappointed! Now, before we start pulling the final criticism thread, I did want to share this small gem, this oasis in the desert of online opinions, this shining beacon in the vast emptiness of right-wing echo chambers. I'm extremely against DEI and wokeism in gaming. Okay, it's a wobbly start, I will grant you, but hang in there. And I was pleasantly surprised by Avowed. Uh-oh, you were deviating from the culture war messaging with your personal experience and informed opinion. I highly recommend it. Amazing. What a journey. I hope you enjoyed that little deviation into vocal criticism with no experience of the game. But now it is time to return to another popular criticism of Avowed, one that perhaps gives us a different insight into the right-wing gamersphere. This category of complaint was a genuine surprise to me, but I suppose on reflection it probably shouldn't have been. There were a number of comments whose main ire was aimed at the fact they couldn't hurt or torment the NPCs of the game world. This is weird to me, both because why would you want to, and because games already exist if torturing and murdering innocent people is your thing.
We shall hang.
My hang?
Aye, you'll hang.
This poor soul made a number of more reasonable complaints later on in their comment, but chooses to open with this. Deserves to be remembered as one of this year's best games? You can't pickpocket, you can't kill any NPCs in the town. Sir, if I can kindly guide you towards Thief Simulator or the Grand Theft Auto series perhaps? Let's take a look at the next one. It's Skyrim, but you can't do things like pickpocket, steal, or harm friendly NPCs, or the douchebag NPCs you agreed to let go, but have second thoughts on and try to attack to no avail. Pretty much a good boy Skyrim, lol. I mean, you are all aware that Skyrim still exists, right? God help us, Todd Howard will probably release another edition by the time I've finished saying this sentence. But wait, there are more comments of this nature. And this is based in the Pillars of Eternity world. In those games you could do so much fun stuff like killing more or less anyone. In this you can't do anything like that. Those games are still around too, and as disappointing as it might be that you can't explore your desire to break laws and play God in this game, I'm sure more opportunities to do so will be coming soon in other games. Finally, there was this chap venting on Metacritic. Just know that this game has no consequences for thieving. You cannot pickpocket people, lockpicking isn't really a thing, you cannot attack guards or friendly NPCs. Perhaps this comment contains the true essence of this complaint. Is this all a persecution fetish? Do they want to be caught and punished?
Oh my.
No kink shaming here, friends. So, we have explored a few of the popular criticisms, mostly based on one of three core complaints, those being wokeness, the game is bad, and this colourful fantasy adventure won't let me murder women and children. But what do I think? I'm not going to drag this out too much. I hadn't played the previous game, so I was getting into the setting blind, which was fine with me. I had heard it described as Skyrim-like, and that told me enough to know that I would probably enjoy it. And since I'm already paying the ever-increasing Game Pass costs, it was a no-brainer to get it downloaded. The environments look fantastic, and personally I enjoy the colourful larger-than-life aesthetic. It makes a nice change from the more bleak and realistic approach taken by some games, and again, it really does look rather nice on the Xbox X series. A few conversations in, and I did get a sense that the voice acting and dialogue writing was a tier or two down from games like Baldur's Gate 3 or Disco Elysium, and possibly even Skyrim. Baldur's Gate in particular has set the bar so high now for fantasy game dialogue that disappointment is almost inevitable, and I quickly moved on from that. I did notice that the character models, particularly the human ones, are a little simplistic compared with the aforementioned games, but in reality I wasn't especially concerned. I played Mass Effect Andromeda before they fixed all of the weird expressions, and have walked the nightmare gauntlet of Starfield's staring citizens, so I had already seen the most unsettling depictions of humans already. In terms of interactivity, there is a lot of environmental filler, doors that don't open, drawers that you can't search, boxes you can't break, that sort of thing. But again, after a few minutes, I adjusted. Would I prefer to have the exhaustive interactivity of a Dishonored or a Skyrim? Yes, probably. But ultimately, you just adjust your in-game expectation and move on after a few minutes. It's not a deal breaker. Combat took a little while to get used to, and felt a little arcadey at first. But I think that when you go into a game expecting Skyrim and then receive something slightly different, it can take a minute to recalibrate. The combat is still not Elden Ring quality, for example, but actually I found I'm quite enjoying the mobility of the dodging mechanics and the timing needed for effective combat. There is enough variation and scope for strategic adjustments that I've grown to quite like it. Enemies are very capable of doing decent damage to my wizardy character Grandalf, and to be fair, I can chuck some serious damage out too, and once you get the ebb and flow of combat, I found I started to adapt my playstyle nicely. I've probably put in around 15 or so hours at the time of writing this, and overall, I'm still enjoying it. The world feels a bit smaller than a typical Elder Scrolls one. It does feel a little more on rails than some similar games. And the criticisms about the lack of life to NPC-rich environments are probably fair, with mostly static and silent people populating the streets of the early game locations. But when I get a spare half hour or so, I still find myself gravitating back to it. I am due another playthrough of Citizen Sleeper 2, and I have 2 or 3 games already downloaded that I want to give a go. So it's not like I don't have other options at the moment. So there is obviously something about this core gameplay that is working and bringing me back. Ultimately, to put a grossly oversimplified but quantitative score to the game, I would probably say a 7.5 out of 10 feels about right, especially given that I haven't finished the game yet and have only been playing it for around a week and a half at this time. I feel it's important to state, this video came about not because of any sense of defensiveness over Avowed, Obsidian or my own personal tastes, but because I found the discourse around the game to be cluttered by culture war BS and easily dismissed paid reviews, which left very little space for any real conversation about the game. Avowed is good, but probably not great, and the developers are seemingly decent people, but not a Marxist cabal. More's the pity. It's a bit of a boring position, but yeah, you should play games before stamping all over social media decrying the latest chosen hate sponge, rather than accept the opinions of those who have a vested interest in kicking up a stink every time someone sees a pronoun option in a game. He, him, by the way. Avowed is fun. Talking about games is also fun. Don't allow toxic right-wing gamer culture to destroy our ability to talk about the things we enjoy, or even don't enjoy for that matter. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on Avowed, if you've played it, and how you find navigating all the radioactive bullshit surrounding so much of modern gaming culture. Please drop a comment and let me know your thoughts, but do keep it nice and friendly or it will just get deleted. Thanks for watching. Please consider giving the video a like, subscribing for more of this kind of thing, and sharing it with friends if they might enjoy it too. Thanks go out as ever to Mrs. InsideLeft for their support and help with scripting and filming, to Nicko for the mic, to Adventsong for most of the music you will have heard, and to the WeCreateTogether crew for their advice and support. Take care of each other, be kind, and see you real soon.